Good evening, everyone. This is Jamie of the Druid Diaries. I wanted to share this evening my experience of the vernal equinox. I wasn't able to spend the week exactly as I had hoped, but I was excited to participate in an Ostara Egg Hunt as part of the planning committee. And I was charged with creating the altar, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed putting the whole thing together. And although things started out in a rocky way by our team being shut out of the facility that we had rented, I believe it ended up exactly as it needed to be. We started right away anyway, and we set up outside. I found a beautiful tree. I narrowed it down to 2 trees, but this one stood out. It's the one that called to me. Beautiful big spruce tree, and I set up our altar underneath that tree at the base. It felt absolutely right. And I am so glad that we did not set up inside. I had a natural fiber altar cloth, very muted tones, the color of the grass before it goes green, and quite large. I spread that out at the base of the tree, and I had 2 candle holders. One was actually for hanging bananas. It was a black metal piece with an arc that ended at the base in a spiral. And I took a small lantern and hung it on there with a little white candle in there. The lantern colors on the glass were very dusk dawn, and then of course the black for night, beautiful, and the white for the moon, the white candle. Then the other candle holder was metal with 2 spiraling strands connecting the top and the base, which to me was DNA, energy between earth and sun. It was beautiful. I originally wanted a beeswax candle on that. I'd seen a beautiful spherical candle that had fronds up around it, and I wasn't able to get a suitable candle that fitted that. So I used another, like a vegetable, still natural wax, as was the small tea light candle. Another candle that was yellow and more of a cup shape, like a flower, for the sun's energy. So we have night and day, and the Celtic day starts at night at the dusk. So either way, we're still celebrating a goddess of the sunrise, the east, the beginning of the changes, bringing to life of the world. Not forgetting Imbolc, but this is another pantheon, and they are so inextricably bonded. They are one to me. With all due respect, culturally, these are both part of my ancestral heritage, and I find them not at all competitive, but I think it's important to cherish them and acknowledge them and acknowledge their root, as well as accepting their and celebrating their universality. So different time of year. We've got the vernal equinox here. So on the side that was more to the night, I also had this ceramic rabbit. It was mold made. There was another ceramic rabbit, also a white one on one side at the daylight, and then a dark one on the other side. And the darker one was larger and more like a hare. And they're both ceramic mold made pieces, but this one was raku fired, which I just found so fantastic. It was a darker color, and the raku, I think I even recognized the glaze, but it had iron oxide and definitely had copper in it, and so we got these minerals in there, and then it's fired up in the kiln to about 1900 degrees, and then you take the lid off the kiln and you take that out while the object is absolutely red, and then you take that object and you put it in combustibles like straw or leaves, some such thing like that. And then you have the smoke, the burning, and then you put that in water and you have the steam, and then these fantastic colors come out. So that was the one rabbit. I thought it was fantastic, very transformational, very magical. And the other rabbit, very lovely and tightly packed and with curling fur, white. And it was actually a little plant pot. So I took, I purchased some bridal, they're called bridal daffodils. They're very white and fluffy at the top. And I took some wheatgrass and I combined the two and planted them into the rabbit pot. And I also had another pot that has a bark effect that had been whitewashed. I was thinking about what are the appropriate trees, you know, for right now. But this is what I had. And it was beautiful and it fitted very harmoniously with the whole composition of the altar. And I put the rest of the daffodils and some more wheatgrass in there. So you look like these fresh flowers bursting out of the ground. So they were on the side where the yellow candle was. And this beautiful raku rabbit, who was so laid out at rest, was on the side with the lantern and the night. And in the middle, I have this big substantial basket. Well, it's sort of like more like that kind of big, not like huge. And it has wooden handles and leather straps on it. Very sturdy, beautiful utility, simple, but very, very nice, substantial. I lined it with straw and I put a dozen brown eggs in there, raw eggs. And that was in more or less the center of the altar, as was the tree. The whole thing was centered on that tree trunk. Beautiful tree. I also found a little bird's nest that you hang, made of like a hay being green, straw being yellow, and of a different sort. So this beautiful little tree. I had a sort of tree basket. It's in a teardrop shape, and it was a nest. It was intended to be a nest, like a birdhouse, but all not just soft things. And I grabbed from a bale of hay in my yard some old hay and I stuffed it inside there and hung it up in the tree above the altar. I also had a little wooden box, beautiful little box. It has a spiral carved, sort of branching out like the, sort of like a plant, right? Spirals coming out, energy, beautiful energy. And I put seeds in there. Now the seeds I chose were very specific. I chose Morning Glory for Ostara, and someone, somehow I found and purchased this bundle of lavender, dried lavender. It was just such a lucky, blessed find, and it smelled fantastic. It was in a secondhand store, just laying there with a bunch of vases and baskets. And I know what that is in that vase. And I said, I will purchase this and I will gift you back the vase because I really only want the lavender. And you guys can sell the vase again. So I grabbed that. And so I had lavender seeds in that little box. Cycle of life and cycles of survival preparation, how our ancestors and some of us still now will harvest plants and dry them to be used over the winter, over the cold months. And so then you collect the seeds to plant, assist the plant, you know, in propagating in the spring. Now, over the winter, I was very blessed to receive gifts of wild mint from family members, one being from my oldest son. And one of these gifts was in a bundle of mint. So I had that. So I put mint seeds also in that little wooden box. I'm thinking of trees too, right? And the earth, it was dark brown, seeds in the earth. So all of this is very intuitive as well as knowledge-based. So the arrangement was just very fluid and balanced and gentle, very gentle. But it had a strength. And I think one of the symbols of strength on there was my drinking horn. I have a beautiful drinking horn that was gifted, well, not gifted, pardon me. She has a gift. This craftswoman in my area, she's heathen, was selling horns, and I had not had any kind of a horn for years since my father gifted me a beautiful small horn. I was just a child. It wasn't that big, but it was beautiful to blow. And he referred back to some of my lineage heritage about that. And that's a special memory. Unfortunately, although I had that horn into adulthood, it met with some uncertain fate. So it was a special moment when I made a decision to purchase this. They are not the same. The first one came from my father, and it was an important gift to him, to me. But he always intended me to have a more elaborate horn. And his gift was not of a drinking horn. So this horn is very lovely. It's a gentle feel to it. And I put water in that horn, and I put that on the altar beside the basket. So there was a little more going on there. Someone during the event placed a small little piece of a feather on there and placed it without my seeing them, and just did it in a really beautiful way. Like they just positioned it in as equally a harmonious way. It was very thoughtfully done. I also had on there, because of the intention to smudge as well as have fire candles, a little ceramic piece with little holes in it where I put a coal in there, and I had wished to maybe burn some lavender in that. And I didn't end up lighting it. Reason being, a bee came. I hadn't even finished the entire altar setting when a bee came to the mint. Now this mint is wild, it's naturalized, and my son and the other fellas that gifted me the mint, they're my children's cousins, that mint they purchased from ladies on the Blood Reserve, Kainai First Nation, and these women have been picking this mint, drying it beautifully, and selling it. It's a cottage industry. And I thought, oh, this is really beautiful. This is great. I love that the boys are supporting this. And thank you so much. I've never received so many gifts of mint as this last winter. And I cherish it. And I actually gave some of that mint to the family, the girls of a friend of mine who passed away. And you might have seen another video about that. And so it just keeps giving, right? It keeps giving. So this bee came and started buzzing around the mint, collecting whatever it could from the mint. The mint smelled incredible. The lavender smelled incredible. It checked out the lavender, but it just loved the mint. And the flowers that I planted in the White Rabbit, it started harvesting pollen from the daffodils. It was really beautiful. In my heart, whatever other explanations are, I know the bees are really hungry right now, and it's been a really confused seasonal kind of thing going on where I am. So it's troubling. But this bee had a feast. And as far as I'm concerned, that bee blessed that altar. And if I had lit the smudge and lit the candles, but mostly that smudge, that incense, that smoke would have bothered the bee. So apart from the fact we were in a public park and there were children afoot, the kids had been fantastic thus far. And we only had one little toddler right near the very end go onto the altar cloth and snatch up a raw egg from the basket, and was in the middle of tootling off the altar and dropped it. And to him I turned and say, I see you gave an offering. That's lovely. And then I scooped up the raw egg and placed it at the bottom of a tree to make a full out offering of it. So we had some adventures. But when that little boy was on the altar, you could hear the bee. He just let him know, I'm here. And he never hurt that child. That little bee never hurt that child. And that bee never hurt me while I was continuing to fuss with placing the rest of the altar pieces on the cloth. It just continued to buzz around and let me know where he was. It's probably a little drone. And that was beautiful, really beautiful. And when I got the pieces from the altar home, they really had a fresh, beautiful energy to them. So I feel it was all right with the world. And I feel also and saw that the altar gave people a lot of peace, a sense of belonging. And it celebrated the goddess, the deity of Ostara. And pronunciation, please forgive me. I'm a Canadian Anglophone who has little tiny pieces of other languages, and I don't get to hear the proper pronunciations of things, and I'm striving to do that on the internet. So I've heard people say a variety of things: Ostara, Ostra, Estra, Istra. So to that very ancient goddess Ostara, thank you, beautiful, beautiful deity, and Ostara, thank you. It was a lovely event and the children had a lot of fun. So, blessings to all. Hope your vernal equinox was fantastic. Thank you. And hey, there's next year too.